Good morning, everybody, and welcome to ETSC's webinar on improving the safety of cycling in Europe. Thank you to everybody for joining us. So we're launching our new ETSC report today. In it, we're calling for lower speeds, high quality cycling infrastructure, and where there is fast flowing traffic, then separated infrastructure for cyclists. Where there isn't, where these measures aren't present, unfortunately, cyclists are paying with their lives. We've only had an 8% reduction in road deaths involving cyclists since 2014. So that's 1 in 10 deaths in Europe at the moment are cyclists, and 1 in 3 of those are single bicycle collisions. So just to say, of course, that this event is going to be recorded and we'll be putting all the presentations online as well. Before we start the presentations, we'll have some welcome words from Toyota Motor Europe, who are partners in the ETSC KIN program, and we're very grateful for their support. So I give the floor to Jos Zegers from Toyota Motor Europe. Jos is a Senior Manager on Social Impact. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ellen, and thank you to the ETSC team. Dear road safety community, good morning. I'm responsible for social impact at Toyota Motor Europe, as Ellen mentioned, and I'm grateful to be here just to say a few words to welcome today's conference. First and foremost, thank you all for your efforts and dedication to improving road safety and to saving lives. The first slide I would like to share is just our philosophy, just to highlight our global mission of producing happiness for all. And we simply can't achieve that if we are not able to provide safe mobility solutions. The other thing that is imperative is to be able to have strong partnerships to be able to achieve this. And following that, just to share our mobility concept on this very colorful diagram. Firstly, on the y-axis, we like to show the vision of how we see that we can expand the value of mobility. And on the x-axis is, of course, energy diversity and everything that is required to do that. And also on the right-hand side, we have another y-axis showing that we need cross-industry collaboration to achieve all of this. So as we transition from cars to mobility, expanding mobility access, and finding synergy with mobility and infrastructure, we are also keeping and focusing on our safety and security and our goal of zero traffic accidents. Then in line with today's conference, I'm proud to share that Toyota has just joined the Coalition for Cyclist Safety. The objectives of this coalition is, of course, to join forces across sectors, so very much in line with our concept and vision, as I shared before. And of course, through this, collaborate on solutions and accelerate the deployment of vehicle to everything or V2X technology, and also to advocate for supportive policies. So we have joined this, of course, as part of our long-term commitment to road safety and the protection of vulnerable road users. With the rapid growth of cycling and other micromobility, it's imperative that we improve the mutual awareness between the different road users, and this has become a critical road safety challenge. And so we're very happy that we can help address this through this coalition. So with that, I will close. Thank you very much, and looking forward to a great conference today. Thank you.
Super, thanks very much, Just. And so, yeah, we're very interested to hear about this new Coalition for Safe Cycling, to find out more about that. So what we plan to cover today. First, my colleague Jenny is going to give an overview of our new report published today. So she'll be presenting the latest data findings from the data and recommendations for improving cycling safety. Next up, we're going to hear from the European Commission and the work that they've been doing to improve cycling safety. And we've got 2 sessions of presentations from a range of countries and experts, bringing all sorts of expertise to our webinar. In the first session, we'll have Lise Bowen from the VS Institute in Belgium, who will be talking about the results of a report they've done recently into serious injuries in Belgium, particularly among cyclists. Then we have Christina Mattsson from the Swedish Transport Administration, who will speak about Sweden's cycling safety strategy and how they set targets to measure progress. The last speaker in the first session, Masha Odijk from SWOF in the Netherlands, who will be speaking about cycling infrastructure in the Netherlands. And then round 2 after the coffee break, so we'll be having a break. You can look forward to that, to catch your breath. There'll be 3 more presentations. Werner de Dobler from the Flemish Foundation for Traffic Engineering in Belgium, who will be speaking about the cycling education program and how that can improve cycling safety from a young age. Our colleague Alexander Buzinski from the European Cyclists Federation, who'll be talking about some of the campaigning they've been doing to improve cycling safety, and specifically also on EU funds, sources for EU funds to improve cycling infrastructure. And then finally, we'll hear from 2 colleagues in Lithuania, Vidmantas Pompiutis and Neimanas Abukauskas from the Ministry of Transport and Communication. So Lithuania has been very, very successful, not just in road safety, but also in improving cycling safety using EU funds. So there we are. We've got a fantastic panel of experts lined up for you. So we really hope that you stay to the end. And also that you're interactive, meaning asking questions to our panelists. We're going to have 2 Q&A sessions, one before the break and another at the end. If you have questions from for Mateusz Ganish, so that can go in at the end of the first panel. Please do send your questions using the Q&A button in Zoom, so not via the chat, please. So I pass the floor to Jenny, our PIN program manager, who will start us off with the first presentation today on how to improve safety of cycling in Europe. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Yeah. So thank you very much. Yeah, my name's Jenny Carson. I'm the PIN program manager here at ETSC. And yeah, I'm going to talk about what we found in our report that we published this morning on cycling safety. So just a little bit about the PIN program for anyone that's not familiar with it. It stands for the Road Safety Performance Index program. It's a program in which we gather data on road deaths and serious injuries in the participating countries. And we look at, we have somebody in each of those countries who provides us with the data and the information on their local actions, and also a steering group that sort of looks at the overall direction of the program. We have a project team here at ETSC working on the program, and today's report will be our 50th PIN flash, which is a nice round number. We publish 2 thematic reports every year and 1 annual report in June, really looking at road deaths and serious injuries and progress towards the targets. We also hold 4 events every year, and this is the first of 2026. And on the bottom there of the screen, you can see the partners in the PIN program, and we're really grateful to them for their support. So yes, PIN flash number 50, improving the safety of cycling, that was just published this morning. So what did we find? If we look really at the relative change in cyclist deaths, we can see that they have reduced, as Alan said, by 8% since 2014, so over the last decade. But compare that to vehicle occupants, where we saw a reduction of 19%. There's quite a big difference. So we can see here the average annual change, so how much cycling deaths have reduced annually over the last decade, and for the countries in the PIN programme. And we can see that the EU average there is 0.5% reduction annually in cyclist deaths, whereas the average for motorised road user deaths was a 2% reduction. So there's quite a difference there. Also, some quite notable average annual increases in cyclist deaths that we can see there, particularly in countries where cycling is popular. So for this PIN report, for the first time, we were able to separate data, or collect data, and then separate it for electric bicycles as opposed to normal conventional bicycles without a motor. And we can see here some of the data. So this again is the average annual change in the road deaths of cyclists using electric bicycles and those on conventional bicycles. And it's perhaps not surprising over this last decade that there's been an increase in the number of in the average annual increase in road deaths involving cyclists on electric bicycles, primarily due to the increase in the popularity of these vehicles over the years. We know that we have data in our report that shows that in 2010, I think 588,000 electric bicycles were sold in the EU, whereas by 2020 that had increased to about 4.5 million. So really, electric bicycles are on the rise, and that will account for this increase here. Oh, sorry. Now, when it comes to indicators for road safety and that we use in our PIN reports, we often use mortality, so deaths per million inhabitants, as an indicator of road safety. But for cycling, it's limited because it doesn't take account of the sort of modal share of cycling. Let's say how often people cycle, how far people cycle, and we've put cycling deaths per billion kilometers is a better indicator, let's say, of the risk of cycling in a country. And we've put those two indicators together so that you can see the difference. And I think it's probably particularly stark when we look at the Netherlands, where deaths per million, cycle deaths per million inhabitants is relatively high, whereas if we look at the deaths per billion kilometers cycled, it's relatively in line with other countries. It's important to say that these countries collect their travel data in different ways, so it's difficult to compare, but it gives an indication that cycle deaths per billion kilometers is really the best indicator we can have for evaluating the risk of cycling in a country. And we would really encourage more countries to collect this data more comprehensively so that we can have an overview, a better overview. So what type of collisions are occurring and causing cyclist fatalities? So it's perhaps not surprising that the majority, so 65% of cyclist deaths occur in a collision with a motor vehicle, and the largest proportion of those are cyclists colliding with cars. But perhaps what's more surprising is the second largest red circle here in this this figure, and that's that 28% of cyclist deaths actually occur in a collision or a crash where no other vehicle was involved. So that's a particularly significant figure, we would say, and something that policymakers should perhaps take note of. So we looked here also at the cyclist deaths by age group, and 51% on average across the EU, 51% of the cyclists killed in the EU are 65 years old and over. So it's true that the mortality of older people is higher across all causes of deaths, but they are more fragile if they fall, and obviously they're unprotected on a bicycle. So there are many factors which might contribute to this higher proportion of older riders. Also, electric bicycles and increased use in electric bicycles. Older people cycle further. We know from data in the Netherlands that they cycle further. They using electric bicycles also, so they may be cycling at higher speeds as well. So there are many reasons why this might be the case. Again, for the first time here, we were able to separate out the data for electric bicycles and conventional bicycles. And we can see here that there is a slightly higher proportion of older people, people over the age of 65, killed on an electric bicycle versus a conventional bicycle. But again, this is probably due to their popularity. They allow older people to continue cycling for longer, and perhaps covering greater distances as well. So now we turn to gender, and across the EU, we found that 4 out of every 5 cyclist deaths was a man. What are the reasons for this? We know that some men do cycle a bit more than women. They also perhaps cycle more on rural roads where there's more chance of a collision with a motor vehicle. But there is also some evidence that they may engage with riskier behaviours. We can see, perhaps interesting to note, that in the countries where cycling is more popular, such as the Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, those proportions of male cyclists and the proportions are slightly higher for the female cyclists killed. Now we turn to serious injuries, and we can see here the progress in reducing cyclist serious injuries. Well, in fact, it's not reducing, it's going up by 12%, as opposed to deaths, which we said before had reduced by 8%. There may be a factor in this, could be that we're getting better reporting of cyclist serious injuries. There's a lot of progress in countries, member states, collecting data according to the MIS3+, which involves more hospital data, and so that could be a factor to explain that big sort of increase, let's say, in serious injuries. When you're talking about serious injuries, of course, you can't talk about cyclist serious injuries without talking about underreporting. We really need that hospital data because we can see from the studies, we have quite a few of them in our report, that cyclist serious injuries are really vastly underreported, and we need that hospital data to really be able to get a firm view of the level of cyclist serious injuries that we have. We can look here at cyclist serious injuries by gender. It's a slightly different picture to the one we saw before when we were dealing with road deaths. So here the proportion average over the EU is 63% of cyclists seriously injured are men. And you remember for the deaths it was 80. So there's quite a big difference here. And one of the factors that we think might contribute to this is that cyclist serious injuries tend to happen from falls, and it could be that those types of falls can happen to equally to men and women, whereas perhaps the collisions with motor vehicles, which have more fatal outcomes, more often have a fatal outcome, tend to happen to men. Again, we can look at the serious injuries by gender, electric bicycles versus conventional bicycles, and we didn't really find a large difference here in the proportion of male females seriously injured. There are some outlying countries, of course, but some of the figures might be small, so we have to take that into consideration. So what can we do to improve cycling safety? We have the data, we know what the issues are, and I think one of the first steps to take for a country, for the EU level as well, is this strategic planning and cycling strategies. We have the declaration on cycling. Mate is going to talk a bit more about that later on. We asked our PIN countries whether they had national cycling safety strategies, and you can see in the map there, it's fairly green, which is great. Cycling strategies can sort of really focus minds. They can set targets, attribute funding. They're really important for driving safe cycling over a long period. They can set targets, and we can see there a small table from the report of countries that have a target to increase cycling in their cycling strategies. And then the other countermeasures, we're going to hear some great examples of good practice from our report throughout this morning. So I won't spend too long on this, but obviously infrastructure is key. As Ellen said, we need separated high quality cycle paths, and they need to be free of obstacles. That huge 28% of cycling deaths that occur with no other vehicle involved, this is where infrastructure is really going to play a big part. And if we look at serious injuries, then the proportion of serious injuries that are the result of a single bicycle collision is even higher. So we can really tackle those serious injuries as well with better infrastructure. Speed also key. 30 kilometers where cyclists and motor vehicles meet is crucial, and to separate them if the speeds are higher. We look in our report also at bicycle design. We have standards for bicycles that are sold in the EU, but there are some countries seeing problems with illegal, particularly e-bikes, sold as e-bikes, but are actually mopeds, and we have some details of that in our report. And enforcement here is key. The Dutch are collecting them at ports, and also the police are bringing in new technology to test e-bikes. Motor vehicle technology can also help. We have ISA, we have AEB detecting cyclists. All these things will reduce the number of collisions between motor vehicles and cyclists. But cars are becoming heavier and larger. We know that bonnet height has an impact on the outcome of a collision for pedestrians and cyclists. So this is something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Dooring prevention systems exist. Prevention systems exist. They could be put on more cars. Is there something for the future of the General Safety Regulation review? Funding is crucial. We're going to hear how you can use EU funding to improve your cycling safety. We've got data in our report about cycling under the influence. Most countries have a BAC limit for cyclists, but cyclists do continue to cycle under the influence, and we have some data on the impact of that. Helmets, we're going to hear from Pernilla about how they've worked in Denmark to increase the helmet wearing rates there. Most countries have mandatory helmets for children, but not for adults. But but it's not mandatory in Denmark, and they've done great work. Cycling education, we'll hear from Werner about the impact of that, how really we can improve cycling safety from a young age by providing cycling education. So we have a great number of recommendations in our report. I've been through, I think, a lot of them already, but please read our report, and it's now on our website. So thank you very much.
Super. Thank you very much, Jenny, for going through our brand new report, which I hope you'll all have a moment to read in a lot more detail. It's very dense. It has some very exciting new data, as mentioned, the best breakdown that we've managed to do yet between the involvement of e-bikes versus the conventional bikes. So as I introduce our next speaker in this introductory session, Matej Ganic, who's the policy officer from the Urban Mobility Unit, he's going to present how cycling safety policy is managed at a European Commission level. I wanted to ask you, Matej, are you a cyclist? If yes, what sort of bike do you ride?
Of course I am.
With such a job, maybe it'd be a bit odd they'd choose someone else if they didn't cycle, but great to hear you are one. And is it an e-bike or a conventional bike?
I have to say, since recently I've bought an e-bike. I
Uh-huh.
bought into the hype, and it's real. It's a game changer. I love it, and Brussels is very has a very interesting terrain with all the hills. I'm from a very flat city in Croatia, well, Zagreb, and
Mm-hmm.
I can go around very well with my mountain bike because we still have the curbs, so I have to have a mountain bike. But here I have a nice city e-bike. I used to have one of those like very retro, 3-switch bikes with a nice wheel handles, the horns as we call them. But after a lot of flat tires and a lot of struggling going uphill, I capitulated and got an e-bike, and I have to say I'm loving it more than I was expecting. So yeah.
Yeah, Brussels has some hills, huh? Okay, over to you then. Thanks.
Okay, I'll try to share my creation with you in a moment. Yes, I hope you're seeing this.
Yep.
And it's
Perfect. Thank
changing.
you.
Okay, perfect. So hi, once again, thank you very much for inviting me to this talk today. And thank you very much for the very interesting presentation that preceded my point. I'm Matej Ganic from DG Move, the unit that deals with urban mobility and research and innovation. I'm fairly new, just a disclaimer to the unit and the unit's work. I have joined in September of last year, but I've been really heading the cyclism file since last week. But I've been heavily involved with cycling also from a point of interest. I've had the pleasure to intern at the ECF what seems ages ago now, but that's how I started my Brussels journey. So I do have a personal, very big affinity towards cycling and naturally cyclist safety, and I think I have quite a good idea of what ails us as cyclists and how we can work to solve these. So without more details on my own backstory, I would like to present maybe some of the more interesting initiatives that the Commission has on cycling safety. So I don't want to maybe go through the statistical layout. I think Jenny did an excellent job and went very much into the details, but I just want to remind you of our annual publications that we do. The statistical report on road safety. We just published one in February on the 2025 numbers, so for 2026 edition on the last year's numbers. And obviously we have the focus on cycling in our thematic report for cyclists. It can all be found on the Move Europa website, and I encourage you to also have a look so that I don't bore you with numbers. But just to maybe reiterate the more important points, indeed, as we've heard, cyclist fatalities have been dropping. It's never as much as we would like to see it, but it has been a trend that you would like to see. Here we have some breakdowns on the country level and by mode of transport. But what I would really like to maybe focus on for the remainder of my well, not for the remainder, but for the next things I'm going to talk about, is this breakdown on rural versus urban road. A lot of us living here in Brussels and in other cities, we maybe don't think about the rural component as much as we should, but in any case, especially in Eastern Europe, such as where I'm from, rural fatalities and rural cycling is the big chunk of the issue. And we have also introduced some of the instruments to maybe tackle the rural area more in the future, which also deserves their attention. So as Jenny announced, we did publish in April of 2024, I believe, the European Declaration on Cycling. And this is basically our main flagship document where we lay out all of the initiatives that we would like to pursue. And here's a little bit of a breakdown on all the 8 principles and 36 commitments. As you see, a whole chapter deals with safety and security. Security meaning theft, for instance. But again, this is a document that talks about cycling unleashing its full potential in terms of its economic potential for the EU27 and the private citizens, but also for reaching climate goals, health goals that can be best achieved with active mobility and its improvement of its conditions, cycling tourism as well. And I have to also mention that DG Move is spearheading the efforts on making a EU cycling strategy. Sorry, a EU tourism strategy, indeed, because I think by June we should present a first look in this tourism strategy, where again, there's going to be also some room for cycling here, but generally already in the declaration we see its potential to boost the economy in many different areas. And of course, nothing goes without data collection, trying to harmonize it, trying to collect data on cycling, also so that safety numbers can be improved, so we know which tools we have to utilize best and basically where, right? Where these collisions happen and how to best address them. And so that the declaration is not just a nice set of wishes. Our commissioner, in his mission letter, has also said that we would follow up on this declaration on cycling and publish a first progress report by end of 2025, which I'll get to. But let me just maybe circle back to the chapter 5, and that is the focus on improving road safety and security. One of the main targets that we're trying to reach is this commitment set out in the Valletta Declaration, which commits to having the serious injuries by 2030, and also commitment to the Road Policy Framework 2130, that we would have no road deaths by 2050, so the Vision Zero implementation, and to have this reflected in national road strategies and action plans. Enhancing the enforcement of road safety rules and legislation, ensuring that the rules and safety requirements for e-bikes are indeed substantial, improving security of public bikes parking, and theft prevention measures. And obviously, awareness always plays a big underrated role. Make sure that for various initiatives, this awareness is of road safety and the safety of cyclists within the road, as in their position as vulnerable road users, is recognized by all transportation participants. A bit of a wall of text, but I think it'll be very worthwhile to actually talk a little bit about the progress report itself, which by this QR code maybe you can access a bit more. If it's a quite broad document, so I'll probably forget some points, but the main takeaways that we want to point out, what our report shows, is that there has been some progress seen in the member states to improve these conditions of cycling. There has been the appointment of national cycling contact points. This group is facilitated by the European Commission, and it serves as a hub to exchange best practices and knowledge on the topic. Here, I would also like to mention the work of our expert group on urban mobility, which meets quite often in the year, 5 or 6 times, definitely. It is divided. Its work is divided between several subgroups, and one of them is a dedicated subgroup also on cycling. And of course, they monitor the implementation of the declaration on cycling itself. What this also report did is a stock-taking exercise, just to see what has been undertaken in the last years, and so various legislation sprouted throughout different areas that the Commission deals with. So the EU driving license rules, training and testing, takes now more into account the safety of cyclists. And we're progressing on the guidance for safe infrastructure design for vulnerable safety users. And this is something that is in the pipeline, and it's aimed to include also micromobility devices as well as cycling. The very important instrument for enforcement in the cross-border world that the EU27 is Directive 2024/3237, which for these offenses with a criminal element, it makes sure that these perpetrators are indeed being penalized when the deed has been done in a different member state. So this is something that we already have the legal base for and the legislation for. And this is for criminal elements here, but we are also looking to use a similar model to tackle cross-border elements in other dimensions which don't have usually a criminal element. So maybe just a provision of road information, some special access zones. This is something that we are also working towards. It's a bit of a challenge because of the lacking legal base, but we do think that it is important to know and to provide this information to road users in case they're entering maybe a calmer traffic zone, so that they are aware of a different environment that they are placed in. Again, something that is gonna be evolved in the coming years. We have also published a report called a study on the need for harmonized rules to support the rise of micromobility. So again, these micromobility devices that is now becoming more and more prevalent, especially with the rise of the gig economy, especially with the rise of these sharing schemes in cities. So there's been policy proposals in this document. However, this is mostly with DG Grow, because the DG in charge of any new technological solution and its importance for the EU industry, they're spearheading it. So it remains to be seen which policy avenue will be pursued by them. And of course, the big financial instrument, the Horizon Road 2025, has a research topic specifically on the safety of cyclists, pedestrians, micromobility users. So again, this is represented, and the goal is to finance some infrastructural measures that would increase their overall safety. A bit more on the funding. These are some of the main sources that I've identified. I think the regional development funds is a major one. We're up to 3.2 billion euros for the current programming period. The Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is coming to its conclusions, I think next year. I think from what we've amassed there, it was like a 1.3 billion envelope dedicated to cycling-ready projects in the 27 member states. And since that is now coming to its zenith, we are working heavily on this social and climate fund, which is now going to be the next kid on the block when it comes to financing interventions for cycling. So far, we have, different member states are in different stages of progress towards developing their own national social and climate plans. And DG Move has been quite heavily involved in the process. Maybe a little bit of a under the hood view, if you would allow me to spend a bit more time on these social climate fund measures, because I do believe this is the big next thing that will finance most of these cycling measures. The social and climate fund is financed by the ETS2 mechanism, and as such, it is mostly under control and spearheaded by DG Klima and DG Employment, because DG Employment is here for the poverty, transport poverty and energy poverty angle, right? This climate fund, social climate fund, as the name suggests, it looks to really address the need of the transport poor and the energy poor for this transition, for the green transition that we're trying to spearhead. As such, Move is in an advisory role, but we are working really hands-on, and we have a good cooperation with the other DGs to make sure that the measures concerning cycling are state-of-the-art, appropriate, and well-targeted. This means that from all the information that we gathered, from the knowledge from our expert group, from knowledge we have on the cycling count study, which I think will be presented a bit later by colleagues here in the chat, we are trying to make holistic and logical proposals to improve the cycling plans of the member states as they are submitted towards us. As I said, so far the progress is slow. I think we only have a couple of submissions of the final plans. Some of the countries don't seem super interested. Again, there's this always hook with ETS2 and how much the political animus in a country of this specific point in time has the appetite for this instrument. But indeed, we try to make sure that the cycling elements, when we're talking about individual measures, for instance, paths and lanes are separated wide enough that the security of the parking spaces is taken into account when we're talking about building a hub, building a parking near a train station, etc. And why I mentioned earlier that we would like to focus a bit more on the rural fatalities with cycling. The Social Climate Fund tries to address transport poverty, which then we identified mostly is in rural and underserved, transport underserved areas, where we have a lot of, coincidentally, fatalities, right? So if we are going to make improvements, we are targeting them in this rural areas where cycling is dangerous. So as such, we want to make sure that the new lanes, the improved lanes, the safety infrastructure, the safe, secure parking is precisely in these lanes where people are getting hurt as a result of lacking infrastructure.
Matej, sorry,
yes.
this is extremely interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you could try to sum up in 2 minutes, please, and we'll come back to you for questions. Thank you.
Happy to do it. I think I'm probably done anyway. So again, just for your overview, I have a couple of more programs here. The 100 Climate Neutral and Smart Cities Mission. Again, 100 cities were in the EU27 were given climate city contracts, and they have to, they have to live up to them. They have been also granted some financing via the EIB lending envelope as a part of this mission, and a lot of them actually do have cycling measures which look to improve infrastructure from a safety perspective. So that is indeed being helped by this Mission Cities initiative. Again, just a short summary of what we're working for: the guidance for infrastructure, standardizing and collecting data, and of course the peer learning exchange as part of the Road Safety Exchange and the European Road Safety Charter. Cycling counts, I'll let I think ECF talk a bit more about this later, but again, we're using the data from this very, very good study, which is going to be published very, very soon. I guarantee that. And this is quite informing and it will help us making decisions and really pinpoint where initiatives need to be focused moving forward. So thank you very much. My contact is on the screen. I am at your disposal. I remain in the chat, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Matej, and sorry to rush you there at the end. Super interesting presentation. There are lots of leads there also for us to follow. We're also trying to influence the discussions on the future funding framework that's going on at the moment. So making sure that there is going to be new funds available to improve cycling safety infrastructure. And then the other topic that, perhaps we leave then for the questions, which I didn't hear about, is the speeding guidance that was promised in the midterm review of the road safety strategy published mid-February. Yeah, and given that ETSC's PIN report includes as one of the main recommendations the need to tackle speed, we'd be very interested to hear about that. But yeah, you had to cram a lot in. Thank you very much again for that. So please stay. Matej has said that he can stay, so for those in the audience, please also send any questions you have to him. Now we need to get on to our three panelists. So I'm going to be as tough as I can be there, so you've each got 10 minutes. Starting with Lies from the VS Institute in Belgium. So Lies is going to talk about a new report published just in February this year, highlighting the difference in the road safety data in Belgium, showing that the number of traffic victims admitted to hospital is nearly 4 times higher than those recorded in the official police databases. And of course, she's going to be highlighting the involvement of cyclists in that data. Over to you, Lies, and I'm going to time now from 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. You can all see my screen, my presentation? Yes, okay. So
yes.
I am Lies Bouwen. I work as a researcher at the VS Institute, so we're the Belgian Road Safety Institute. And I was very kindly invited here today to present our latest figures on cyclist serious injuries. So like Ellen said, on the one hand, I will focus a bit on the underreporting issue, and on the other hand, on really the characteristics of these serious injuries. So we recently published our new statistical report on traffic casualties in hospitals, where we use the data from the hospitals. So first, a few words on the data itself. So our database is called the minimal hospital data, and it's the registration of all general hospitals, and it includes the administrative, the medical, and the nursing data. A few technical notes. So the hospitals in Belgium currently use the ICD-10 coding system for all the medical diagnosis. We currently have data up until 2023, and we have just received actually the data for 2024. So very soon we will be updating the report again with the latest figures. We make a selection of the traffic accidents ourselves using the medical diagnosis, and we also calculate injury severity, so the MAIS3+ indicator, because hospitals only code ICD, there is no AIS coding, so we make the conversion and we use the conversion table from AAAM. So first, the underreporting. So we actually put the hospital data next to the official accident database, and we always make a comparison with or between the number of traffic casualties who were hospitalized overnight. So they spent at least one night in the hospital, as recorded by the hospitals, and we compare this number with the number of seriously injured we see in the accident database. And we choose specifically seriously injured as an indicator because in Belgium the definition is that they spent at least 24 hours in the hospital. So the definition is more or less the same to make sure that we are comparing the same group of injured. And as you can see on the graph, really the numbers recorded by the hospitals are a lot higher than the numbers we see in the accident database. We calculate the injury ratio. We see that there's an underreporting rate of 5.6 in 2023. So this is specifically for cyclists. For all road user types together, the average is indeed 3.9, so about 4. We do see some progress that the gap is getting a bit smaller because we see the highest underreporting rate in 2017 with a rate of 7.3. So the underreporting seems to be higher for cyclists than the average. So here comparing with the other road user types, we see indeed it's the highest among the different types. And we see that the rate is lowest for pedestrians. For them, it's equal to 1.9. Next, a bit more the characteristics of the cyclist injuries. First of all, injury severity. So we calculated the MAIS score of all patients. And you see that for the majority of them, almost 61%, they have injuries with a maximum severity of moderate. So they have only moderate injuries. And we see that at about 23% have at least one serious injury with an AIS score of 3 or more. So these are the MAIS3+ patients. And we see actually that for cyclists, this percentage is lower compared to pedestrians, electric scooters, and power two-wheelers. So for example, the electric scooters, they have, for them, it's 36% is seriously injured when they arrive at the hospital. But for cyclists, it's still higher than for car occupants. There, about 20% have serious injuries. In terms of trends, here you see on the graphs, the cyclists are depicted in green, and you immediately notice, I think, the trend for cyclists has been increasing year by year. Pretty much the only road user where we see this increase, this consistent increase, for the other road user types, we can say in general that the number of MAIS3+ has been decreasing. For example, for the car occupants in orange, in about 7 years' time, the number of MAIS3+ has decreased by about 40%. Whereas for cyclists, it has increased by more than 20%. Which also means that, as you see in the graph on the right side, the cyclists are really the biggest group within all MAIS3+ injured. For a couple of years now, about half of them were a cyclist. A few more details. Here you see distribution by age. So the biggest age groups are those between 40 and 64 years old, and those 65 and older. Most of them are male, so 69%. And we also have some information about the type of accident in the data. So we can also see like who is the most common opponent. And you see that about 40% of the cases, there was actually no opponent involved. So these are the single vehicle crashes. We also see that about 19% got seriously injured when they were hit by a motorized vehicle. But you also notice the big question mark because unfortunately information about the type of accident is missing for about 35% of the patients. However, based on previous research, we do have a very strong suspicion that a lot of these unknown accidents are also single vehicle crashes, which means that actually the share of the no opponent category is still a lot higher than 40%. Then this brings me to the injuries. So here you can see the anatomical distribution of the serious injuries over the different body regions. I also included the body profiles for the other road user types just for your information. But for cyclists, you really see very clearly there are two body regions that really stand out. First of all, the serious injuries to the head, face, and neck. About 42% of my History Plus cyclists have an injury to the head, face, or neck. And you also see a lot of serious injuries located near the hips and the upper legs. There's about 41%. Making a very small comparison with the other road user types, you see also a lot of serious head injuries among pedestrians and e-scooters. And actually, this percentage is highest for e-scooters. For them, about 65% have a serious head injury. We do notice some differences in the injury profiles, for example, by age. So here you can see, for example, the head injuries are very prevalent among the youngest age group. So about 54% of those between or those younger than 18 years, they have a serious injury to the head, face, or neck. And this percentage goes down with age. So for those aged 65 and older, it's about 35%. However, in return, we see that the prevalence of serious injuries to the lower extremities increases with age. So we go from 19% in the youngest age categories to 52% in the oldest age category. And finally, we also looked at the injury profiles by type of accident. So here we are on the left side, you can see the distribution in the single vehicle crashes, so when the cyclist fell down, slipped, hit an obstacle. And on the right side, you see the types of injuries in the multilateral accidents. In most cases, these multilateral accidents involved a collision with a motorized vehicle. And here you see that the injuries to the head seem to be a bit more prevalent in those multilateral accidents. So we have like 56% compared to 40% in the single vehicle crashes. I also wanted to point out the chest injuries because even though they are not the most dominant kind of injury for cyclists, there still appears to be a difference according to the type of accident. So it's a bit more prevalent in the multilateral accidents compared to the unilateral accidents. So it seems that really the upper part of the body is hit more severely when the cyclist comes into a collision with the motorized vehicle, whereas the lower part of the body is more affected in the unilateral crashes, because we see about 45% has a serious injury to the hips and the upper legs in the single vehicle crashes, whereas, let's say, only 23% in the multilateral accidents. Which brings me to the end. So this was just a very small selection of the statistics from the report. I kindly invite you to check it out. It's available only in French and Dutch. And soon we will be updating the report with the data from 2024. Just a small note, I presented everything now, cyclists all together, without making a distinction between conventional bikes and e-bikes, because these categories are not yet available in the data up until 2023, but they will be available in 2024. So it would be quite interesting also to look at the conventional bikes and e-bikes separately in the figures. So thank you. I hope I'm still within my time limit.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. It was perfect. Yeah, we're at 54. Thanks very much for the very interesting presentation. Again, not just highlighting all the different complexities of gathering the serious injury data, but the importance of integrating that into prevention work. And one of the priorities that comes out there again is the need to look at the single vehicle crashes now, and assess them as a matter of priority. So just a little appeal to all of you out there to send in your questions, please, to the panelists from this first session, also to Jenny and to Mate from the European Commission. So next up we have Christina Mattsson. So we're going from Belgium up north to the Swedish Transport Administration. So one of the points that we make in our PIN report is the importance of having a cycling strategy, so a national cycling strategy that also includes targets. And that's exactly what they have in Sweden. So we're looking forward to hearing from Christina. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Jenny is going to present my presentation because I'm on the phone participating from my phone. And I see my presentation. Yes, thank you. So my name is Christina Mattsson. I work for the Swedish Transport Administration. And I'm going to say something about the importance of cycling safety strategies and setting targets. So next slide, please. So first, some short words about history. The work with Vision Zero in Sweden has been ongoing since 1997, but the intermediate target for 2007 was not reached. So the former authority, Vägverket, at the time responsible for the national road infrastructure, was given a government assignment with instructions to suggest a new intermediate target for traffic safety and to make a suggestion for the upcoming period according to the Vision Zero. So we developed this management model. Next slide, please. The road safety value chain is a basic structure for setting intermediate targets and to make it easier for stakeholders to identify necessary measures. And networking and management by objectives are fundamental approaches. The purpose of the road safety value chain is to demonstrate a logical order from the main objectives to necessary measures needed to achieve the main objectives, and to make it easier to understand how increased road safety can be achieved. First of all, we have the overall effects of the road safety problem. That's our outcome indicators. And we earlier heard Jenny talk about indicators in the report. So this is almost the same for following up the outcome in road traffic, for instance, the number of fatalities and seriously injured. And road safety performance indicators is a central notion. These indicators describe a condition in road traffic with a verified relationship with the safety outcome. For example, sober traffic and share of bicycle crossings of good or fair safety classification. But for the indicator to be useful, it must be measurable, and intermediate targets should also be set for the indicators. This will make it easier for the stakeholders to see how the different operations influences on the road safety outcome, and it will also make easier to identify effective measures. We have defined them as system indicators and user indicators, where system indicators following up the design of the road transport system at the system level, for instance, safe roads and safe vehicles, and the user indicators for following up the use of the roads transport system, for instance, use of bicycle helmets. Next slide, please. And the evaluation is based on a regular analysis of the final outcome of fatalities and serious injuries, but also on the outcome of the road safety performance indicators. The evaluation and the following analysis are done in collaboration with other stakeholders in the road safety arena. And the evaluation process has the following steps. January to March, we compile and analyze data. In this phase, a national analysis group gathered data on fatalities, injuries, and the different safety indicators. And in April-May, we release a report on the road safety trends of the previous year. And we have a result conference where we present the result and findings. And this year's conference will be held the 4th of May. And in the second part of the year, selected stakeholders discuss and agree on the common position on priorities. And stakeholders declare what they plan to do and achieve during next year. Next slide, please. So if we look at the road safety situation in Sweden, we can see that the number of fatalities is quite low, but still not in line with the target. Seriously injured are not at all in pace with the target. And one of the largest groups of seriously injured is cyclists. And as we know from data from Strada, Swedish traffic data acquisition, and we also saw from the data from Belgium, bicyclists are the most common road users to be seriously injured in a road crash. And of all seriously injured cyclists, about 80% have been injured in a crash without any other road users involved. So what is our management by objectives saying about cyclists? Next slide, please. We have some indicators that relate to cycling, and we have one outcome indicator to follow up the number of seriously injured cyclists in single bicycle crashes. As you can see, we are far from target, and this is number from 2024. The number of 2025 will be presented next week. So unfortunately, we can't show it in advance, but I can say it's not in line with the target. We have 4 system indicators related to cycling. There are 2 indicators for the share of bicycle crossings of good or fair safety classification, one on national road and one on municipal roads. And one indicator we have for the share of street length with 30 and 40 kilometers per hour speed limits of all streets of 30, 40 or 50 kilometers per hour. And then we have one indicator to follow up share of municipalities with a high level of systematic road safety management. This will we measure by a questionnaire to the municipalities. And at last, but not least, we have an indicator to follow up the share of cyclists observed wearing a helmet. And we haven't done any measurement of this indicator since 2023. And then it was far from the target. Next slide, please. So to follow up the indicator of bicycle crossings, and to show where the measures are most effective, we use a proactive road safety classification. On this map, we can see the classification of the pedestrian and bicycle crossings. There are 3 levels of classification: good, green, and fair, yellow, and bad, red. The classification is based on the Vision Zero crash violence principles for unprotected road users. Yes, we can take the next slide, please. And we also have information about what type of speed reducing measures are available on the locations. If it's speed bumps, speed humps, chicanes, or other measures. So next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier in this presentation, it's crucial that necessary stakeholders are more committed to achieving the long-term goal, and that they are also prepared to take action. We have developed an action plan for road safety. You have a link there for the old plan, and there is an ongoing work for the third action plan, which will be released soon. But the action plan contains more than 300 measures. Of course, not all about cycling, but that's what the relevant authorities and stakeholders intend to implement during the period. And the strength of the action plan is that the various stakeholders and authorities themselves point out what they can and want to contribute over the next few years. We also have an old report about strategy for safe bicycle and moped traffic, and you have the link to that report as well in English. And at our website, these reports, as well as guidelines to encourage and communicate safe, active traveling, are published. So, next slide, please. So we can see the importance of cycling safety strategies and setting targets. In effect, it's a part of all the road safety work we do and is included in the indicators, is followed up yearly in the result conference, and is in the action plan with many stakeholders. Next slide, please. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. So hopefully that means that spring up where you are. Beautiful, beautiful flower. So super pleased to have had that presentation. Very, very clear, and yeah, really glad to see that your indicators also include safe traffic intersections, and the maps that you were showing is very, very helpful, I think, to illustrate this, and also speed. So sections of road with lower speed limits, 30 and 40. So hopefully we'll have time to discuss more of that in a moment when we have our Q&A session. So this is the last call for questions, please. Whilst we have our last presentation, so Masha Odek from SWAV. Masha, you're a return guest from the Netherlands. So anyone who's been to the Netherlands will know that they have very high quality infrastructure. We're going to hear from Masha about how they do it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and for those who have not been to the Netherlands, I put some images in the presentation. So you can see. You should be able to see my presentation now, just to check.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so I'm Masha, I'm a researcher at SWOF, and we focus on infrastructure and traffic related to safety. And I'll tell a bit about cycling infrastructure and also in relation to seriously injured cyclists. The presentation is 3 parts. So first a bit about bicycle infrastructure, then about the single bicycle crashes and the challenge we have in the Netherlands, and then some infrastructural measures that can be taken. So in the Netherlands, we have a lot of cycle paths, but also bicycle lanes. And this is the main part of our cycling infrastructure. And the main principle is to separate cyclists from motor vehicle traffic when speeds are over 30 kilometers an hour. However, it's not always successful here. For example, on 50 kilometer an hour distributor roads, still 46% of those roads have cyclists on the carriageway, like you can see in the image. And of course, the goal is to make that 0%. And measures that are taken is either to apply separate cycle paths, but these days we also do a lot of reducing the speed limit to 30 kilometers an hour. And a lot of municipalities are implementing that right now. In addition, we also have regular residential streets where cars and cyclists are combined, but there the speed limit is always 30 kilometers an hour or lower. And then we have some special cases like the bicycle street you can see at the bottom, where it's a main cycling route where some cars are still allowed. For intersections, for large intersections, the preference is always to do a roundabout, because it forces drivers to lower their speeds, and also it reduces the number of conflict points between road users. And at the bottom you see an example of a bicycle path that's bended away from the carriageway to ensure that when cars turn right, they have a better view of the cyclists and give priority, which really benefits safety. We also have intersections between cyclists, of course, and this is gaining more attention these days, because in the Netherlands there's a big issue with an increase in cyclists on the bicycle paths, but also an increase in heterogeneity, which means that speeds and mass differences are increasing. For example, because of the e-bike, but also because of delivery bikes, like you can see in the picture. This is an image where you can see, for example, how infrastructure relates to safety. And this is quite a recent study that I wanted to show you, because it clearly shows that the crash risk is strongly related to the bicycle path width, which has a, well, not surprising result, but I think very interesting to see that with every half a meter of bicycle path width that we increase, the risk seriously decreases for cyclists. And this is a nice example of how infrastructure strongly relates to crash risk for cyclists. Then to the second part is more about the crashes. In the Netherlands, 35% of all traffic fatalities are cyclists. And 1 in 3 of those fatalities is from a single bicycle crash. When we look at seriously injured cyclists, we do not know exactly how many of those are from single bicycle crashes, because the data does not specify this for us. But what we do know is that 80% of seriously injured cyclists are from crashes without a motor vehicle, and a big chunk of that will be single bicycle crashes. So this is a very big number. And in addition to that, we've seen that in the Netherlands, the number of seriously injured cyclists is very strongly increasing. And then, of course, that also means that the number of single bicycle crashes is very rapidly increasing. So this needs to be given a lot of attention. And a note I want to make on that is that risks are not the same for all cyclists. We usually talk about cyclists, but in general, but there's like specific groups that need additional attention, and that's especially the elderly. At the top, you can see a graph of the fatalities per billion kilometers traveled, and you can see that this is for higher age groups, a lot higher than for the lower age groups, and we're talking like, well, you can see the difference, which is huge. And we also know that single bicycle crashes are more fatal when it comes to elderly and when it comes to the younger cyclists. Now's the question, of course, what we can do to reduce these crashes, or at least reduce their impact and their severity. Crashes are caused by a complex combination of circumstances, and we know from a study that 50% of those crashes infrastructure has some role in the occurrence or the outcome of the crash. Here you can see, for example, what type of infrastructural elements then influence the crashes. For example, slippery roads, run-of-the-road crashes, bollards, road narrowings, bumps and potholes, vehicle doors of parked vehicles that open and close when they're parked near the carriageway, and also roadworks alongside the road. A study following this looked into how much we can reduce these crashes by infrastructural measures. And for each of these types of crashes, there can be a certain reduction. For example, when cyclists are out of balance because of bumps and potholes, we can reduce these crashes by 75%. And we can do this by applying closed pavement rather than open pavement, and consider proper greenery and tree types that don't break the pavement. For crashes against the curbs, also improvements can be made. They can be made by removing curbs when they're not necessary, especially on more narrow roads. But if you cannot remove them, you can also choose to lower them or make them stand out more visibly by marking them, for example, with white paint. Then we have run-of-the-road crashes or crashes in the roadside, where you can do both. You can help cyclists stay on the road by visually guiding them, but you can also allow them to correct their mistakes when they end up on the roadside, for example, by limiting height differences and removing obstacles in the roadside. And then we have crashes into bollards and road narrowings. We can, according to the study, fully reduce this by removing these elements. And a lot of work has been done on this in the Netherlands, and a lot of bollards have been removed to benefit safety. Then a side note to make, these studies are already quite old, more than 15 years old. And of course, in the last 15 years, we've seen a lot of changes in the cycling road users. And therefore, we should question if additional measures, in addition to the ones I mentioned, are needed to account for current trends. For example, the increase in elderly on the road, and of course the increase in crashes we see, but also to account for higher speeds and things like that. At the bottom, I put a reference of a study we did last year on elderly cyclists, which will be followed up by an additional report this year. So if you're interested in specifically elderly cyclists, then you can look into that. And we're also running a study on crowdedness on bicycle streets and the effects of that on safety, also looking into what that means for our infrastructure and the requirements for that. So to wrap up, infrastructural measures to prevent single bicycle crashes. Firstly, no obstacles to prevent cyclists from crashing into something. Visually guide the cyclists to keep them on the road. Ensure that there's smooth pavement. And if a cyclist ends up in the roadside, make sure it's forgiving to limit the effects. And I put the ... at the bottom as a way to hopefully in the future add more to this, given the current trends that we are seeing and additional knowledge we hope to gain with the studies that we're currently now doing. And that was the end of my presentation.
Great, thank you very much, Masha. So we do have a question for you, but we'll let you catch your breath. So asking everybody else to come back. Mate, are you there? Yes, excellent. So coming back to the challenge of managing motorized transport, the cars, the trucks, the buses, the e-scooters. What is the Commission planning in terms of tackling speed? Can you tell us any more about this speed guidance that has been promised in the midterm review of the road safety strategy? And then also for the benefit of the now 120 people here in our webinar, what exactly is this VRU quality requirements, the infrastructure guidance that we expect also to be published in the next month? So we're looking at September, October, we hope. So 2 points. And then I come back to Masha, and this is the last possibility for anyone in the audience to send us a question. Thank you.
Do I take it from here?
Yes,
okay.
Please. Yes, please.
Yes. Sorry. A lot of buttons to press on the speed recommendation. So I would like to just maybe start with an address that our director Christian Schmidt has had 2 weeks ago in front of the TRAN committee that the European Parliament, and again he underlined that this recommendation will be the big next road safety deliverable. So it is coming. Its context, I am yes, yeah. Its context again. I'm not privy to maybe say right now, but I could say something that might give a bit hope to those here in the chat that are looking to hear something along the lines of recommendations to cap a speed. I would like to recall that the expert group on urban mobility has indeed issued a recommendation on protecting the vulnerable users, and these recommendations do favor the implementation of a speed limit in 30 kilometers an hour on urban areas where this would have a more measurable impact. On the work of this recommendation, these type of inputs that we gather, that we work on, will definitely be taken into account most seriously. I also would maybe like to stress the recent communication on energy saving measures. Again, not our domain per se, but I believe that there has also been one of the points, 10 kilometer per hour reduction, just generally on all roads. So I think, again, not promising anything, not giving any conclusion as to what, because again, this is the remit of the road safety unit. We are the urban mobility and R&I unit. Not to get into their brains and how they're thinking, but these are all indicators that have to be taken into account. All of these decisions have to be, all of these recommendations are made on the conclusions such as this that we mentioned. So in that case, the promise is there. The TRAN committee has had the words, has heard the words from our director Christian Schmidt, and it's coming. And again, I feel that based on all of the input gathered so far, we could have maybe a message on also on this point. Again, to move from speed to something that I may be more privy to talk about, we are talking more about some more systemic challenges, such as the enforcement, right, and limited social acceptance. It is a sort of a cultural thing to accept these limitations, and then how good your enforcement is really then comes to decide whether safety will increase, because we cannot have just a simple declaration recommendation if we have systemic issues in the member states when it comes to setting and then enforcing these speed limits. So yeah, some political will is also going to be then on the member states, regardless of our communication, but we are all aware of this fact. Could I also maybe kindly ask for if you could repeat the second part?
On the guidance on vulnerable road user infrastructure. Christina mentioned that they have, one of their indicators is on intersections that have been treated. So yeah, we're part of this expert group as a ECF, but just for the benefit of the others on the webinar, what will this guidance on infrastructure safety for cyclists, pedestrians, and power two-wheelers, e-scooter riders actually deliver? What can we expect from that?
Here I have to take the excuse of being relatively new here to the
no worries. I mean, you're 1 week in the job, huh? Thank you so much for taking on this challenge today.
Of course, no. I would definitely ask maybe what would be best to do here is anybody who is again interested in this point, please. My contacts, I think, were briefly in the presentation, but also in the Q&A. If anybody's interested, I can take your also contacts and I can give you a more thorough answer, not to now grasp at straws or come up with something
no worries. No worries.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to take this with all the interested parties here now in the chat, bilaterally or multilaterally. But for the purposes and for the sakes of a better answer, please please reach out. I'm happy to do a more thorough answer this way.
Super. Thank you. Thanks very much. Please stay with us. So there was a question from Anna Politou about cycling collisions involving buses within dedicated bus lanes. So we actually do have this here in Brussels. Cyclists share bus lanes. And I'm cycling on one pretty much every morning on my way to work. Masha, what is as our infrastructure intervener panelist, what's the legislation like in the Netherlands? Is it allowed? Do you have any data on this?
Cycling on bus lanes.
A dedicated bus lane, yeah.
That's not something that's common here. No, dedicated bus lanes. Our buses and taxis use those. We do have, of course, roads where buses are on the road, and sometimes cyclists as well. But then there's always at least a bicycle path, and preferably separated, or a bicycle lane, I mean, and then preferably a bicycle path. So there can be the case that there's a bicycle lane, so then, but then they're still relatively separated. So bus crashes with cyclists is not that big of a topic here because that's quite regulated already. Yes.
Okay, all right. Thanks very
I
much.
think it would be here if you cycle here on the bus lane, people will look at you very surprised. Yeah.
Okay. So Christina, to you, if I could ask you the same question, what is the situation in Sweden? And then also, if you could tell us a little bit about what else is going to be in this new cycling strategy, specifically on safety, of course, is what we're interested in.
Yeah, if you mean the action plan,
Yeah.
if it's the strategy you're meaning, so that's where we put our strategy for cyclists. As you said, there the municipalities they've said they are going to build some new infrastructure for cyclists to do some road. I have to. The crossings are going to be better, and they're going to save cycling in cities, save bicycle boxes, and so.
Okay, that's an interesting one. And do you have this measure? Do you have this legislation which allows cyclists to share the bus lanes with buses?
I think it's maybe in some of the municipalities, but I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. So I have another one. I have another specific one here for you, please, Christina. If you could give an example of a specific measure for reaching the target on reducing single bicycle crashes in Sweden. Yeah, because it was also very high from what I could remember from your data.
Yeah. Yes, it is really high. I think the most important measure is to get some the maintenance, to do maintenance and to let them do their job.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, we also had recently a Court of Auditors review report on looking at EU funds being spent on building road infrastructure. And one of the key recommendations was also that there has to be more attention to maintenance, including also for the cycling infrastructure. Okay, so I had one here for Lise. So thanks very much for the really interesting presentation. Well, to all of you. The proportion of MAS3+ of cycling hospital injuries is 21%. Is that right? Question mark. So if we take that as the serious injuries, how does that compare with other modes of serious injuries of MAS3? And how does the stay at least one night cycling injuries compare with other modes stay at least one night? Finally, phew, hope you got that, the first two parts of the question. Is there any link to whether cycling has been increasing or decreasing in Belgium and whether that impacts serious injury risk? Yeah, so Jenny, of course, showed some of the data that we had, and that, of course, is a really $1 million question. So to you from Belgium, do you have an answer?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. So the first one, the proportion of MAS3+ of the cycling hospital injuries is 23%. So if we compare it to the other modes of serious injuries, we see that for cyclists, it's on average a bit lower compared to pedestrians, electric scooters, and power two-wheelers, but the proportion is higher compared to car occupants. I'm not sure if that was answering your question, but the second one, so how does the stay at least one night cycling injuries compare to other modes? When we look at all injuries of all severity, we do notice some general, similar patterns across all modes. in terms of the most frequent injuries, regardless of the severity. So we do see still a lot of injuries to the head, but we also see a lot of injuries to the arms and to the lower extremities. So they are very frequent for all modes, but it's mostly when we look at specifically the serious injuries that we really start to see the differences in the patterns. So for example, serious head injuries are very common for all road users, but it's mostly for the vulnerable road users that they are very frequent when we look at the serious injuries. So they are less frequent for power two-wheelers and car occupants, looking only at the serious injuries. But in the report, we do make a comparison between the frequency of all injuries, so the distribution of all injuries of all severity, and then comparing it also with the distribution of only the serious injuries and really putting them side to side to see if there's any differences in terms of severity. I'm hoping also that that's answering the question.
Yeah, and the data on increase of cycling, do you have that, or Jenny otherwise?
Yeah, we do have some projects going on to collect this mobility data, but it's quite challenging as well to gather really qualitative data. We also have some projects where we calculate the injury risk, taking this into account. So I can perhaps it's a bit easier if I just link a bit the research, send it to you to send it around. It has a bit more detailed information.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. So I'm going to squeeze in one last question before the coffee break. And this is back to Mate, so you're not let off the hook yet, sorry. So London has introduced 3 safety standards to reduce truck, pedestrian and truck cyclist collisions, right? Big priority. Trucks are overrepresented in fatalities across Europe. Trucks in London now have much better direct vision, special cameras, and truck drivers have to take additional training to work on major building contracts, and this is reducing collisions. I'm going to add something in there. We're expecting the revision of the EU's procurement legislation in July. So the question from the person in our webinar is, will Europe follow London's lead in trying to get some requirements like this on having safer trucks, the vehicle, but also the driver being trained on interaction with pedestrians and cyclists in urban areas? And then it's coffee.
Sure, then I'll be brief. Well, I think that the recent driver license directive has tried to elevate a little bit more about trainings for newer for situations that we saw that are arising due to this maybe, how should I say, new technological solutions that we could then implement in trucks, etc. I mean, what maybe we're looking at now more from the side of movement, how we should tackle this is also for automation, which I'm not sure how popular it is right now here in this group, but generally this is something that we're also through our CCAM partnership also trying to maybe what we anticipate is the rise of these automatic delivery vehicles, make sure that this is taken into account when prescribing policy recommendations to cities. So this is what I can say right now as a more of a broader wider view on these initiatives that we're trying to do in terms of trucks in urban areas. So again, as this evolves, we will definitely keep you updated with how we follow and how we intend to follow it in the future.
Super. Thank you very much. Yeah, we have high expectations as far as that priority. Pedestrian, truck, cyclist interaction in cities. Thanks again very much to all of you who spoke on this panel, and also to the questions. So we're going to have a break. We're going to come back at let's say 45, yeah, 1:45. So a big virtual round of applause to everybody. for the preparation of the presentations. And also, Mate, welcome and well done. 1 week in. Thanks very much. And hopefully see you after the break. Do come back at 11:45. Thanks. So welcome back, everybody. Hope you managed to have a little break, some fresh air, a cup of coffee. And thanks for coming back. So we have 4 more presentations to get through before lunch, which each of the presentations is trying to highlight one of the elements that we have included in our brand new report on safe cycling. So we have Denmark, talking about helmet use, cycling education, and then 2 presentations on EU funding and how it can be used to improve cycling safety. So EU funding to improve infrastructure, which is another one of our key priorities that we're calling for here within our PIN Cycling Flash. First up, we have Pernille Ehlers from the Danish Road Safety Council. Pernille is going to talk about research that she's published recently into the high rates of bicycle helmet wearing in Denmark, despite it not being mandatory. Over to you, Pernille.
Thank you. I'll try to share my screen here. Okay, my name is Pernille. I'm from the Danish Road Safety Council. We don't work with the infrastructure, we work with behavior and preventing accident through behavior change. And I'm going to tell you a short and brief story about how we convinced the Danish cyclists to use bicycle helmets without any kind of law. But first, some context. In Denmark, we are 6 million people. 7 out of 10 Danes own a bike. The average distance traveled is per cyclist is 9 kilometers, and bicycling is a key part of culture and daily transport. We are the second best cycling country in the world, and we have excellent bicycle infrastructure. The number of killed cyclists in 2024 was 20, and we have no legislation of the use of bicycle helmet, not for children, not for anybody. It's all voluntary. And this is just a picture from a normal Danish commuter traffic in Copenhagen, right near where I live. And as you can see, the helmet wearing use is quite high. If we look at the numbers over the years, we have been counting bicycle helmets for 20 years, since 2004. These are the numbers in school traffic and city traffic. The top line are school children. We count them in the morning on the way to school. And this is the average of all school children. As you can see, when we started back in 2004, the use was 33%, and now it's up to 81% in average for all school children. In city traffic, and this is again all ages, average of all ages, it's gone up from 6% back in 2004, and now it's 55%. That's a new record for us, so we're quite proud of that. If we zoom in on the children in schools, this is the use of bicycle helmet in school traffic by age. The top line are the youngest children from 6 to 9 years old. The helmet use is now 97%, so it's everybody. When they're a little bit older, 10 to 12 years old, it's 89%, so it's extremely high. And those who are not so good, but still good, are the children over 12 years in school traffic. Their helmet use is 60%. So does it work? Well, if we look at the proportion of head and neck injuries among injured cyclists in Denmark over the years, we can see quite an interesting correlation here, because you can see all the trends are going down. The proportion of head and neck injuries are going down, but they're going down the most for the groups with the highest helmet use. So the small children have gone from 25 to 15, under 15%. And the top line, which are the older teenagers and the young adults who have the lowest helmet use, have had the lowest reduction in neck and head and neck injuries. So that we have some kind of strong indication that the more the helmet use is going up, and the higher the helmet use is, the lower the head injuries are. We have been working with this. I will try to, to zoom 20 years of campaigning into a very short presentation here. We have been working with availability, the three approaches: availability, awareness, and attractiveness. Availability, making it cheap and easy to buy helmets. Awareness, talking about the injury reducing effect of helmets. And attractiveness, making it normal, making it sensible, and being a role model for your children and grandchildren. Underlying this, we have, over all the years, we have been monitoring cyclists' motivations and behaviors through countless interviews, research, focus groups. So we're all along trying to keep track on how do we communicate this in the most efficient ways to get the helmet use up in the different target groups. And as you saw, we have the annual count of bicycle helmets to measure the effect, because if we don't know how it's going, we can't, well, we don't know if it's working. So these are very important data for us to have this all over these years, the annual counts. And also, of course, this development has been supported by the improved helmet designs over the years. If you look at the helmets, what they looked like 30 years ago, they were very ugly and not very functional, and now they have very big variety. You can find a helmet that suits your style, and it's the helmet design has improved very much. This is just one example of how we worked with availability back in 2009. We thought that helmets should be accessible, cheap, and well designed. So we made a pilot project to see, would it work if we get 4 Danish designers to design helmets? We sell them in supermarkets at a low price. The profit was donated to the Brain Injury Society, and and so it was a pilot project. We didn't know it was working, but it worked extremely well. So it told us, design, good price, availability, it works. And they were sold out so quickly, as we had to do it one more time to so that everybody who wanted the helmet could get one. Just one example of availability. Another example is more recent. We saw that the students at universities, their helmet use was not so high, and I mean, they're living from their brain, so why should they not wear a helmet? But it showed out that their reason was, they said, I would wear a helmet if my friends did it, and they were cheaper. So they didn't wear a helmet because their friends were not wearing a helmet. So we thought, well, how do we solve this? So we made some pop-up stores at university campuses. We said, bring your friend. If you both buy a helmet, well, you both wear a helmet, so that's not an excuse anymore. And we had a good designed helmet at a good price. And you see, it was very popular, and they were sold out, and we got their phone number, and we asked them, we made some follow-up studies to them and asked them if they still wear the helmet. And after 1 year, 75% of them still wore the helmet. So we know they kept it on their heads. And this is just an example of my local bicycle store. Today, the availability is like this in every Danish bicycle shop. 20 years ago, you could maybe find 2 helmets in the back of the shop, but now the variety is very big, because, of course, it's also money for the bicycle shop, which is very good for the helmet use. Working with awareness, we have done in many, many different ways over the years, continuously. Case videos with young people, old people, students who have either been saved by their bicycle helmet or has been very unfortunate to get severe head or brain injury because they were not wearing a helmet. Educational material, quizzes, instructions, statistics, press, media work over the years, ongoing. And in all schools, we have educational materials that is free, that come from us. And in all schools now, this is a picture from the bicycle test in the 6th grade. I think it will be unthinkable that one pupil would not wear a helmet today in one of these tests. It's simply not possible. So all schools have a strong policy on bicycle helmet wearing during school time. some ways we have been working with attractiveness is a competition we made back in 2009, Design Your Own Helmet. Again, trying to work with helmets in a positive way, not scaring people, but making them attractive. And we had 7,000 design proposals, very creative. So again, trying to make people work with helmets in a funny and creative way, and a personal way. Another example in the middle is Find One Error from 2012, where we work with parents as role models. You know, parents, they say to their child, you should wear a helmet. And we say, why don't you wear a helmet yourself? So we made this Find One Error. And with working with elderly cyclists, this is a very important target group for us, because as in Denmark, as in other countries, the elderly cyclists are highly overrepresented. They have a high number of injuries compared to other ages. So we work with them, safe on your bike throughout your life. If you avoid damage, if you avoid injury, you can cycle on for many more years to come. We know if an elderly person gets a serious injury that can end their career as a cyclist, and that would be very unfortunate. So a helmet is also a very important factor on that. Today, in Denmark, the bicycle helmets, they are widely accepted. It's just normal. So the main barriers are things like this. This is the most commonly used excuse. I want to buy one, I just haven't done it yet. Or I forget it, my hair gets ruined, it's awkward to carry around, I look silly, and stuff like that. Earlier, it was like, I don't believe that a helmet will work. I don't need one because I'm a skilled cyclist. But those excuses are sort of gone now. So the common thing is, everybody knows that a helmet is a good thing. They just haven't done it yet. And it's a little bit about the hair and so on. But these are excuses that we can work with in a creative way, which we have done. Maybe you have seen our earlier Viking film. Have you seen that, some of you? Working with especially the men and their vanity and their excuses about their hair. So I'll just show you a few examples of how we work with the bicycle helmet today. This one is because we have a very big annual heavy metal festival in Denmark, or in Copenhagen, called Copenhagen. So we made this poster at the parking spots for bicycles. Wear a helmet when you cycle like hell, because there are a lot of drunk men that are cycling there. So they should, of course, wear a helmet. Another one is this for students that graduate here in June in Denmark. When they finish high school, they get this white cap. And we made this poster, and now they also get a postcard together with their student cap saying, take good care of your smart brains. Congratulations with the cap. So we made this merge between a bicycle helmet and a student cap. And the last and recent one is for the adult cyclists. We have made a brand new King campaign, as we call it, this year. It's just been released 2 weeks ago. A helmet has always been a bright idea, and this is Christian V, who is trying to conquer Sweden, which didn't go so well. But so these are some examples of how we're working with bicycle helmet today, with very specific target groups and very pointed communication at those specific target groups. It's not broad campaigns anymore, but we work with the groups that has the lowest, and where we want to raise the helmet use the most, we can sort of pinpoint our communication to those target groups. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Pernilla. Very interesting, insightful presentation on increasing the bicycle helmet wearing rates in Denmark. Next we have Werner de Dobbelaar from the Flemish Foundation for Traffic Engineering. So yeah, ETSC with its PIN program, we are looking for a safe system approach, which means taking measures in all the different areas of road safety, including also road user behavior and road safety education. So we want our kids to cycle to school, but we want them to be safe. And Werner, I hope you're going to present how your road safety education program for Flemish school children in Belgium actually helps to do that. Over to you, Werner. Okay, he's still muted, right? Werner, I think you're muted. Unmuted. Still not. I don't know if someone can help him. Yeah, that looks good. Testing.
Thank you for the introduction, Helen. I hope this is okay right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
I'll just try and share my screen. Is this visible?
Yeah, we have it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for thank you very much for inviting me. Hi everyone. So I'm Werner de Dobbelaer. I work at the Flemish Foundation for Traffic Knowledge here in Flanders, Belgium. So we're a regional road safety organization, a public body created by the Flemish Parliament, and our framework is the Flemish Road Safety Plan and European Road Safety Strategy. We focus, just like our Danish colleagues, on safer road users as part of a broader safe system approach. And so this means we focus a lot on education and awareness raising for a great variety of target audiences. Now, when we look at becoming a safe cyclist, this, of course, takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. We can compare it to climbing a mountain, for example. It takes a lot of preparation and intermediate steps. You need a number of skills. You need a number of knowledge. You need balance and steering skills, for example. You need to know the rules and how to apply them. You need to be able to identify risks and know how to react, etc., etc. And we've all combined these elements in a learning trajectory for cyclists. But of course, this learning trajectory is only one of the elements because the basics of the safe system also need to be in place to be able to have safe cyclists, naming safe infrastructure, safe speeds, and safe vehicles, as was mentioned earlier today. So a word on learning trajectories in general. What is a learning trajectory exactly? It's a pathway that outlines the progression of knowledge and skills that pupils are expected to acquire during their learning process. It builds on previous knowledge and skills as pupils advance step by step through this process. And of course, it's a great help for educators to plan lessons and assessments aligned with long-term goals. Now, the long-term goals for cycling education in Flanders are the attainment levels for road safety and mobility education in Flemish primary schools. They are the minimum objectives that pupils should meet when they complete a given grade. And these objectives are related to knowledge, to insights, to skills, and to attitudes. And these attainment levels are defined by the Flemish government. Schools are obliged to work towards reaching them, but they are free to determine the lesson content and also the teaching methods they apply to work towards reaching these attainment levels. And as an example, you can see the general attainment level for road safety and mobility education that pupils must reach at completion of a primary school. It says that pupils must be able to locate dangerous traffic situations in the wider school environment. They must have sufficient responsiveness, balance, sense of coordination, and know the traffic rules for cyclists and pedestrians to be able to move independently and safely along a familiar route, for example, from home to school or from home to their youth or sports club. And they must also show willingness to consider other road users in their behavior. Now, this is the general attainment level, but of course, for the different age groups, there are more specific attainment levels as well. Okay, so slide 6 then, it's to help reaching schools, to help them reaching the attainment levels for traffic safety and mobility education. We help them in providing high quality traffic education. We've developed an integrated method that combines teaching, training, and testing. And this is a step-by-step system. It's developed in collaboration with teachers and university researchers. It's based on a detailed description of the knowledge and the skills that children need to acquire in each grade. It also includes school plans per grade and the teaching materials linked to the school curriculum. And it also includes a series of tests and exams with certificates after each test or exam. So next slide, please. Just to give you an idea, here you see an overview of the skills that are addressed in the practical cycling training sessions. There are also theoretical sessions, but this is for the practical training sessions for each grade, starting from kindergarten and up to the last grade of a primary school. For example, for the earliest grades, it's about steering skills on a balance bike, learning to keep their balance, first on a balance bike, then on a pedal bike, etc., etc. And in the first grade of primary school, it's about skills such as proper braking, making a slalom, riding straight ahead, etc. In addition to the cycling training skills, there are 4 other themes that we've treated. For example, the knowledge of traffic signs and rules, also the knowledge of risk factors such as blind spots, etc. Next slide, please. Now here you see an overview of the various tests and the corresponding certificates, starting with the balance bike test and certificate in kindergarten at about age 5, followed by the bronze and silver tests and certificates for children around age 7 and 9, and ending with the grand cycling exam, as we call it, and the gold certificate at the end of primary school, so at around age 12. You can see that it's a graduated system, and the tests and the certificates are a kind of milestones in the learning trajectory. So next slide, please. Here's an example of the skills that we test in the Grand Cycling exam. The exam takes place on the road in real traffic conditions, and it's supervised by traffic teachers, or these can be volunteers also, for example, parents or grandparents, and in some cases also it's supervised by the local police. Now we've defined a set of 12 skills that goes from looking over the shoulder while staying on track to giving way where this is required. And each skill is then defined as a number of sub-skills, and these sub-skills are tested in the exam. So it's a really quite very refined system. Next slide, please. So here you see the sub-skills for cycling on the right side of the road. So this is one of the skills. These are the sub-skills. The pupil should choose the right side, keep sufficient distance from parked cars. He or she shouldn't cut off bends, etc. The performance of the pupils on each sub-skill is then evaluated by a supervisor. He ticks the boxes if a pupil does well, or puts a cross if it doesn't go well. And of course, there are a number of supervisors along the trajectory of the exam to give the pupils, to evaluate the pupils' performance. Next slide, please. Now, for schools and teachers, we have also developed a number of step-by-step plans for organizing these cycling tests and exams. Everything is available online. They just have to follow the logical steps to plan everything and to do everything. It's really a plug-and-play system. We want to make it as easy as possible for schools and teachers to organize these exams and to use our learning trajectory in general. Next slide, please. Also, as a support for teachers, we have dozens of lesson sheets for all grades and age groups, and each lesson sheet has a detailed description of the lesson setup, the structure and the content of the lesson, including exercises that can be done with the pupils. And this is yet another example of the plug and play approach that we use to convince as much schools and teachers as possible to use our materials. Everything is entirely free, and it's available online. And so about half of all primary schools in Flanders use our system at this moment. Of course, we would like to use all schools to use our system, but they are not obliged to. So we are really we want to make everything as user-friendly as possible. Now, in conclusion, next slide, please. In conclusion, we can say that we offer a comprehensive graduated learning model for cycling education in Flanders. It's based on a very detailed description of the knowledge, the attitudes and the skills per grade and per theme. And it is also linked to the official attainment levels, competences, and the educational goals described in the school curricula. It includes also a series of tests, exams, and certificates that act as milestones in the learning model. So next slide, please. This was my presentation. Thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer these at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Werner. Yeah, so ETSC's PIN report says that nearly all European countries have educational goals or competences related to cycling education, but not all countries actually manage to deliver that. And that we're going to publish soon under our Learn project, our education project, a specific report on the state of education on teaching children safe cycling and also safe walking, I mean pedestrian safety as well. I wonder if I were to take the grand cycling exam, whether or not I would pass. On to the last two presentations. So again, a reminder and a request to those who are still with us, please, to send some questions to our panelists. So I'd like to introduce Alexander Buczynski from the European Cyclist Federation, one of my colleagues I work with a lot, and also on this area of safer cycling infrastructure. And Alexander is going to present specifically on the use of EU funds to improve cycling safety. Over to you. And yes, so it's 1:15, so that we do have time for questions. We might go a little bit over time, so I'll give you 10 minutes and then 10 minutes to the Lithuanian colleagues, so everyone has had their good amount of time. So please stay with us if you're listening, because they're going to be good presentations.
Thank you very much, Ellen, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Before I start talking about money, EU money, I would like to share a few more numbers from the cycling count study that Matej mentioned in the morning session. Where we are when it comes to cycling infrastructure across the EU. We have around 340,000 kilometers of what we call dedicated cycle network, cycle tracks or cycle lanes. And if we count a much wider definition of cycling infrastructure, including also low speed 30 kilometers per hour streets, cycle streets, specific service roads shared with agricultural vehicles, and so on, we come up to a number somewhere in the range of 1 million kilometers. And this is, if we compare it to the road network, it means that around 16% of the road network is safe for cycling on the most basic level, because this is only about the level of segregation from motorized traffic, only about the speed of motorized vehicles. It does not take into account all the factors, or how the quality requirements that were also mentioned a few times in the morning session. So it does not take into account width or obstacles, or whether the speed limit is actually enforced. And now we come to funding. There is a lot of EU funding for cycling, and it's increasing with every EU budget, and we're very happy about that. Starting from around 700 million in the first budget 2007 to 2013 to around more than 3 billion in the current budget. That is very rough estimate, and it also only covers the structural funds, so ERDF and the cohesion fund. if you want a more in-depth picture, we have just published a more detailed report on that, on what's exactly hidden in the different intervention categories. And we'll soon open an interactive map of EU-funded cycling projects on our website with some assessment how's the situation in different member states. But the important thing is that the estimate from the Commission is that this funding for the current period will be enough for around 12,000 kilometers of cycle tracks and cycle lanes. And if you compare it to the numbers from the cycling count study or from the general network, it means that it will make a difference of on 0.2% of the road network in Europe. So even if you choose the locations most carefully and address really the most significant black spots, it's not very likely that this EU funding will halve road deaths universally across the whole Europe. We need much bigger money, either from the EU or from the national or regional funding. And this is not to say that the EU funding is useless or it's not making a change. What we think is the best practice, where we think that the EU funding can make the most impact, is if it provides a backbone for national or regional cycle networks, something that the regional or local interventions can connect to, when it provides really high quality infrastructure that can serve as a benchmark, as an inspiration for regional and local stakeholders. And I just show one example of what we consider good practice. In Poland, in the previous EU budget until 2020, basically almost all the regions had similar level of funding for cycling, more or less 50 million euro per region. But there were two regions that made much better use of that than the other, the West Pomerania in the top left corner, and then Małopolska in the south. And looking at West Pomerania, they focused on the funding almost only on 4 cycle routes that crisscrossed the region. They built 350 kilometers new cycle track that, in addition to the already existing infrastructure and the low traffic roads, allowed to create this backbone network of 800 kilometers. And this now it created impetus for further investments. Of course, they are also taking money from the current budget to build the next stage and to make this network more dense. But basically everyone is now convinced that yes, this is something that is useful for people, that we want to have more of that, and we want to build it in this high quality. There was one more region that did like that, the Małopolska in the south. And the common pattern was that they really focus on few selected routes, so did not disperse the funding on many little things. They started with low-hanging fruits. There is no shame in that. If you have low-hanging fruits, you have to go for them. The connection to rail network, so there is a lot of synergies between when you make it possible to combine train and bicycle. And the routes were implemented by the regional road administration. So they did not hand over the money to the municipalities. They did it on the regional level because of the capacity to handle this kind of project. The assurance that it will provide coherent routes, also economy of scale. They built around 2 times cheaper than some of the other regions. And quality assurance. If you have a small municipality of 5,000 inhabitants, you don't have, a laboratory to check the quality. You don't have a cycling team to verify whether the design is good. And you don't have this level of quality. And this is just two examples from another report we published already some time ago, and it's referenced in the PIN report that ETSC published. And you can check it out for a few more inspirations, not only from Poland, also from Flanders, France, Romania, and other countries. One more thing I would like to say is this is not a good practice. This is bad practice that you need to avoid if you want to use the EU funds effectively. What you see on the picture is one of the EU-funded cycle tracks in a small town, again in Poland. It ends here. It has a continuation 50 or 100 meters further ahead on the other side of the train line. But when the this is Rail Baltica, where the rail line was upgraded from two tracks to quadruple tracks, the design of the rail upgrade did not include the passage for cyclists under this rail line. So we see that, and both investments were EU funded, just from different budget lines. And this is which, unfortunately, we see quite often in many different countries, that funding from one goal is sabotaging the effects for another goal. This is not really coordinated. Of course, this doesn't have to be like that. You can also include cycling in the big infrastructure investments. This cycle track was improved as a part of an inland waterway investment. So it's also possible. And actually, since 2024, this is a part of official EU policy. So the new TEN-T guidelines, they also include active modes as one of the objectives of the Trans-European Transport Network. And they point out that to have an efficient and resilient network, you need to take into account the synergies with cycling infrastructure. And of course, we also have a guide, a report on that, which you can find on our website. So that's my presentation. What I would like you to remember from that is that we currently have funding for cycling infrastructure, but the EU funding is not enough to make the road network safe for cycling. We need larger scale investment. The best use, we think, for EU funding for now is to create the backbone for national regional cycle network where it does not exist, and to provide benchmark and inspiration. And one important thing is to really remember about integrating not only doing cycling projects, but integrating cycling in whatever else you're doing in the field of road safety, in the field of transport, but also wider when you plan new housing, flood protection, whatever. There is usually also an opportunity to provide, to improve the conditions, the facilities for cycling. And it's much cheaper if it's integrated from the very beginning than if you have to retrofit it afterwards.
Super. Thank you very much. So 83%, that's one of the figures that I'm going to remember and should motivate our work now when we're trying to convince MEPs to support our amendments on the revision of the MFF regulations, right? 83% of the current network is unsafe for cycling. And then also, yes, this interactive map to see the use of the funds, that's also a very useful resource, I'm sure. So Alexander will be with us for the panel discussion. If there are any questions and answers, please do send them. And now for the last presentation, we've had to wait a long time. We've got two, not one, but two colleagues. Hang on, you need to unblur your video so that we can see Neymanas. So it's Vidmantas Pompitis and Neymanas Abukauskas. from the Ministry of Transport. Hi. Vidmantas, can you just try and look at your video setting and unblur it?
Okay, I will try.
Because otherwise, yeah, or you're just going to have to move left and right.
Okay.
So Lithuania won our PIN award in 2022, but didn't stop there. They have been working very, very hard also to improve cycling safety. There we are. You did it. Thank you very much. And are going to tell us their story on how you did this. Hopefully also with some very useful lessons learned for others listening in from across Europe. Welcome. The floor is yours for 10 minutes now. Thank you.
So let's start from the very beginning. I will present general overview of the traffic safety situation. In 2010, Lithuanian fatalities rate was very high. Comparing in 2010, number of fatalities was near 300, and after 10 years was reduced up to 175. And in the last year, the number of fatalities dropped up to 125. So we can see significant number of fatalities reduction. And if we look back maybe 20 years ago, number of fatalities, total number, was divided in two parts. First part was pedestrians and cyclists, and cyclists and pedestrians caused near 50% of all killed on the road. So the number of pedestrians and cyclists was very high. So if we will look road fatality statistic in 2001, number of fatality rate per 1 million was 202. Number of fatalities in 2010 was 90, and in last 2 years ago it was 42. So we can compare the huge reduction, and one of the target group was cyclists and pedestrians. So it was a huge package of different road safety measures dedicated for pedestrian safety and for cyclist safety, but the main target was set in the Zero Vision program, which was approved by the government in the beginning of the last road safety decade. And we have 5 general priorities in the Vision Zero. First one, safer behavior of road users. The second, safer...
Vidmantas,
Sorry,
I'm
Yes?
just going to interrupt you because
Yeah.
your slides are not changing. We do not see the slides changing. Would you like me to share?
Yeah, maybe you can.
Maybe. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're on number 4, Vidmantas, so
Yes, yes.
please continue.
Yes, and now in number 4, this is number 3. Next slide.
Yeah.
It was approved 5 general priorities. The first one, safer behavior. Next one, safer road infrastructure. Third, safer and greener vehicles, effective post-accident assistance, and detailed investigation of all traffic accidents. But one of the most important part of the Zero Vision priorities was safer road infrastructure. And this part also include improvement of the infrastructure for cyclists. And comparing in 10 years period, what was before and what we have now, we have a huge improvement. But about, will tell my colleague Nemunas, next slide. Yeah, and what is the existing statistical data of accident rate. So we can see what in general about every year nine cyclists are killed in Lithuania, serious injured causes for about 38. And we can see what with e-bikes every year number of accidents are increasing, but of course it's relating with number increasement of e-bikes drivers. Next slide. And this slide will I will give the floor to Nemunas, my colleague, and he will continue.
Yeah, so thank you, Vidmantas. And next slide, please. Okay, I will continue. So let me continue our presentation, and I would like to draw some attention to our legal framework. So in 2024, new rules for cycling infrastructure planning and designing was prepared and approved. And why is so important? So in our opinion, because they were prepared based on good practice and experience from different countries and provides a completely different approach to cycling infrastructure. Next slide, please. So let me explain why rules for bicycle infrastructure planning and designing have huge impact on bicycle infrastructure quality. And for that, let me show you some examples from the period before rules was adopted. And in these photos, you can see the solutions of bike infrastructure. And of course, we should agree that in all these examples, the infrastructure is not sufficient and convenient for them. Paths are too narrow, infrastructure is for pedestrians in general, and infrastructure sometimes is made like an imitation of infrastructure. Next slide, please. Or solutions like these, then infrastructure of the street is made convenient for cars, but not for cyclists due to waived sidewalk, as you can see. And in other photos, you can see what the attitude of designers and road owners was if such inconvenient or even dangerous solution one was installed. Trees, gutters near the path, etc. And in the photo on the bottom right, you can see one of the most massive and systematic solution, a convenient traffic situation for cars in junctions and inconvenient, dangerous solution for bikes and pedestrians. Then they have barriers in the movement direction. Next slide, please. So in general, the situation was that even in the streets where cycling infrastructure was implemented, the cycles and bicycle drivers continued to drive on the carriageway. And after the implementation, the municipality started blame on us that there is no change in bicycle usage and cyclists didn't use the infrastructure. And you can see why. The cycling infrastructure is made as a pedestrian sidewalk without understanding what the circumstances bicycles need. And it's obvious that in the situation as shown, the cyclists tend to use the carriageway instead of the sidewalk. Next slide, please. So the main principle which has been implemented in cycling infrastructure planning and designing rules is setting the clear infrastructure planning principles. And this procedure should be done before designing and helps to set main function of the streets in territory according road functioning principles. So as I mentioned before, technical designs can be started only after planning of cycling network of entire territory. Next slide, please. And the next very important step in the rules is setting of clear, convenient, and self-explaining principles of cycling infrastructure. especially in places where cars and bike trajectories are crossing, as you can see in these hymns. Next slide, please. High attention in rules is paying for clear and obvious situations. Then cycling infrastructure goes by the road and crosses the junctions of these roads. And the high attention is paying, as you can see, on clear visual, imagine, and even on longitudinal slope when cyclists have the trajectory without any elevations. Next slide, please. So the changes are obvious. Almost all implementing infrastructure meets the main requirements of width, cross, and longitudinal slope, pavement type, and color, and of course meet the functional requirements. Next slide, please. Well, in the slide you can see as well the situation what I have mentioned before. Then the entrance to residential street or access road should be implemented in the way that is convenient for bicyclists, but not for car drivers. Next slide, please. One more important note. The first feedback from municipalities after the adoption of the rules was, oh, we don't have enough space to implement such infrastructure. We don't have bicyclists on our streets, so we don't need such wide and high quality infrastructure. But after some seminars and consultations, they started to understand that in many cases there is enough space for all road users if your decision is to share this space among them. And in this picture you can see how Street for Cars was transformed to all road user street. And of course other goals was reached here as well. Speeds decreased drastically and road safety increased, of course. The space become more livable and comfortable. Next slide, please. One slide is missing, I think. Main obligation. So let me explain in a few words about funding. So when we are talking about rising attention to cycling in Lithuania, when we are talking about new principles for cycling network planning and strict requirements for cycling infrastructure design, you should be curious what the amount of cycling infrastructure development in Lithuania at this moment, how EU funds money are involved in this process. So I can say that at this moment we are using 2 EU resources funds. One of them is CIF, and this fund is dedicated for cities which have the SUMPs, Sustainable Urban Mobility Plans. And in this fund where is allocated about 100 million euros. And the goal is to implement not less than 250 kilometers of cycling infrastructure. And second one is RRF fund, which is dedicated for cities and towns without sustainable urban mobility plans. And in this fund, there is allocated approximately 70 million euros, and the goal is to implement approximately 175 kilometers of cycling infrastructure. And as I have mentioned before, the main obligatory requirements for municipalities which are appeal to EU money remain as listed in this slide. So it's a holistic planning and network hierarchy should be done. Implemented infrastructure should be connective and continued. Main geometrical parameters should be considered, and clarity of car-bike situations should be solved. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
And thank you. No, that was absolutely brilliant. Thanks to both of you, Niminas and Vidmantas. We'll come back to you in a moment with a question. Excuse me. So for those of you still here, thank you very much for staying with us. We're going to take 5-10 more minutes to put these great panelists through their paces with some questions. So question first to Werner, which goes a bit above and beyond education, but it is a very important one nonetheless. So are you ready? You need to unmute yourself. There we go. Sometimes road infrastructure is not really making it easy for pupils to cycle to school. This we know. Do you also teach pupils how to solve difficult traffic situations? Yes, I remember that from the presentation, but there's a follow-up. Eventually including the surrounding of the school. And also, what does the on-road training look like? What type of roads do you take the kids out on? What's the volume like? Are they busy? What are the speeds like? Is on-road training possible if the speed is above 30 kilometers an hour, for example? You're unmuted, but we don't hear you, Werner, which is not a good sign. Let's try again.
Is it better?
Yep.
Okay, so thank you for the questions. First of all, yes, we teach pupils how to deal with difficult traffic situations, either in the school environment or on the routes to school. So one of our projects is where pupils map out the safe routes to school together with teachers and parents, for example. And then they try to solve difficult traffic situations in the school environment or on the route to school. It's only one of the examples, but of course this will be done rather in the last grade of primary school. So for pupils aged 10, 11, and 12. So we won't do this, of course, with very young children, because of course the risks are too high in especially when it comes to very difficult traffic situations. And then on the on-road training aspects, well, this depends of course on where the school is located. Is it the school in a busy city environment, or is it in a small village? This can have a huge impact on the location where the training takes place. But the principle is that we start in a protected environment, so on the school playground, and then we move to protected environment on the street, for example, protected by police that close off the street. And then in the further steps, we move to in real traffic situations. Mostly this will be done on quieter roads in the school environment, so not in very dense motorized traffic to avoid big risks, and also not where there's a lot of fast moving traffic. But these may be roads where there's a speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour, so not necessarily on roads on routes with 30 kilometer per hour speed limits.
Okay, thank you very much. So back to Vidmantas and Neimenas on speed limits, urban speed limits. What are the urban speed limits in Lithuania currently? And is this part of your approach to improve cycling safety?
Yeah, general speed limitation in urban area is 50, of course, but it's good to say what in residential area we have a reduction up to 30 kilometers per hour. And if we are talking about Vilnius capital, so in Vilnius capital, number of such area where speed reduced up to 30 kilometers per hour every year increasing, and comparing, we made a calculation per 5 years, the number of such areas and number of street length increasing more than 6 times. So now we have more than 250 kilometers where speed limited up to 30 kilometers per hour. So the huge improvement for the speed reduction, and it works in practice, I can say. The number of injured person, injured cyclists and injured bicyclists are dropping down. So it really works.
Oh, it's really great. And I forgot to say what I wanted to say at the end of your presentation, which is really congratulations for all this hard work. I have a follow-up question. So when you presented that legislative framework, right, for the change in the cycling infrastructure, where was the motivation? Where did this come from? And what is your advice to others trying to replicate this? Like how to get it off the ground, how to get the rocket going?
No. Okay, your question was what is the motivation? Then I would say that the motivation was then the politicians from Ministry of Transport and Communications, they understood that 92% of all journeys in Lithuania, daily journeys, is made by cars, is not normal, or that broadening of streets are direct influence on more cars in our streets, and the cycling can be majority but not a minority. So this understanding kicked us, how to say, forward, and that's why we are started to do this procedures and all process.
Super, thank you very much. So coming back to Pernilla, and one of the other aspects also covered in our cycling flash, the helmet wearing. You gave an excellent presentation showing also the percentage of helmet wearing rates amongst the different age groups. Have you encountered any hard to reach sections of the population? You talked about the students. You talked about the people going to that rock concert, the heavy metal fans. Any others?
The hardest to reach definitely are the 15 to 20-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
When they are getting teenagers, they want to decide for themselves. Their mom and dad should not decide anymore if they wear a helmet or not. They're definitely the hardest, without any doubt. We can also see they have the lowest helmet wearing rates. Even though they're quite high, it's still the lowest. They're very difficult.
Okay.
We don't give them so much attention because we know we give up sort of a little bit.
Okay.
We are getting back to them when they are around 1920, when they're students, then they get then it's their own decision to put the helmet back on. And so we try really to focus our campaigns on where it works, where we get the most helmet race for our money. And it's not the 15 to 20-year-olds, definitely.
Okay. Thanks very much. So last question now to Alexander from the European Cyclist Federation. Thank you again for your excellent presentation. So we've got this challenge of upgrading a very large part of the network, right? This new data that will be published under the Cycling Counts project, 83%. How do we prioritize? And where is the pot of gold?
I think part of the answer is we cannot do everything at once, and one of the answers was already that you need to create a backbone. You need to create a start of the network. Then the local and regional initiatives then connect to something. They see that that's the cycling infrastructure, how it looks like, how that people are using it. And there is already a lot of infrastructure that is quite dispersed. It's not forming a network. You see 1 kilometer there, 3 kilometers there. Connecting those into the first routes is a good starting point. The more difficult answer is that we don't really. That's a sort of blind spot in the road safety environment to how to prioritize, especially in rural areas. So where are the routes with the highest potential for cycling? We can do it in cities where we usually have quite good idea of where people travel from A to B, and we can pick the trips, for example, below 5 kilometers, and then see where the most potential is. But it's a bit more difficult in rural areas, and as Mate said in the beginning, I think that will be the next big challenge to address safer cycling in rural areas.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, we also had from our rural PIN flash data showing that unfortunately cyclists are dying on rural roads, but that means that they are there. So we need to take measures. Okay. I will come back to you, Mate. One moment. So I had one last question for Pernilla, and we go to Mate, and then we try to conclude and go off and have lunch. The sun is shining here in Brussels. So we had a question for Pernilla. A helmet for 25 euros. Sounds like a cheap and unreliable product. How do you test it, and how comfortable are you with it? Did the manufacturer save on material or on the lifetime of the product?
No, of course, we only use approved helmets that apply to all the standards. But in this case, we got some money from a foundation that supported,
right,
and that's how the price came down.
So you could subsidize it.
Yes, yes.
Excellent, great. Okay, thanks very much. So, Mate, in sort of 30 seconds, please. The floor is back to you. Thanks again for staying to the end.
It was my pleasure. I'll be really brief. There's not much for me to say. Just to put a bow on what we heard recently, just on the next steps that we also think that could also help to address this kind of questions, where exactly to target some of the rural investments in terms of safety. What we're doing now and what will then help in this is in the European semester, which is a tool with which we negotiate with member states every year to see that their policies are aligned with our priorities. We have managed to also include this time a transportation chapter where road safety is featured heavily. This is why data like this that we just had presented from Alexander is very important, so we can see exactly what type of recommendations we can give to the member states, because without data, without maps, without something simple they can latch onto, it's difficult for them to maybe listen to us and hear us out, right? It is a back and forth. We try to make our points. With this sort of data, it is much easier for us to make it make the point. And now with this addition of a dedicated road safety part in our transport annex, we think that this will be a strengthened position of ours going forward in these negotiations. So thank you. That's it for me today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the Court of Auditors report on road safety was also including it in its recommendations that the European semester process take road safety more into account. So this is very welcome from our side. So just to conclude, I wanted to mention again our key recommendations from our 50+ page report, which I hope you will all go and have a look at. That is to introduce and then also enforce 30-kilometer or lower speed limits on urban roads where cyclists and motor vehicles share space. Thanks to Lithuania for giving your update on that as well. Then to significantly increase investment in separated high-quality cycling infrastructure, including protected lanes, dedicated cycle have to be a real priority. Yeah, and thank you also to the colleagues from Lithuania giving the breakdown, and we'll make sure that we publish your full presentation on the use of the current EU funds. It was super interesting to hear about funds being used under the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plans for a cycling infrastructure. We'll be looking forward to those the expert guidance on quality infrastructure for vulnerable road users, which should come forward in autumn. So that will hopefully help to improve the quality of the cycling infrastructure across Europe. And for those that don't yet have national cycling strategies with targets and especially measures on road safety, we encourage the national level also to adopt that. So we've got many, many more recommendations, both for the European and the national level. I'd like to again thank until nearly 1 o'clock, and to the panelists for your excellent presentations and active participation also in the discussion. I did have one more thing to say, which was about the PIN conference. This is PIN flash number 50. And in June, on the 23rd of June, it will be our 20th anniversary of the PIN. You're very welcome to join us for a special PIN conference in Brussels, in person, that is. All right, all the best. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day.